So to recap, the shaft has to be restrained completely. And the job of these two stop collars and their spacers is to place this handle in the position it needs to be to disengage and engage while reaching the locking mechanism. Watch the lock one more time out here on the button. See how the button popped out? That click, it has to have that nice crisp click when you do that. Unlocked, locked. The other thing I'd like you to take note of is the distances. If you ever look down at your Automan Junior when it's locked and you don't see that that end of this handle is right in line with the edge of that bearing block, it's not in the right place. And when it's unlocked, if you can see the end of the sprocket, if it looked like that, that would be wrong. It should look like that when it's unlocked. The reason is because we figured out all the travels of each one of these so that this would be unlocked, but the handle would still slightly cover this so rocks and debris will never get in there on the return road.
Nice.
So this is now in the lock position, and in this situation I would put the stop collar here. I would pull this tight up against this stop collar because remember there's 10 thousandths of clearance in here, so I'm pulling this so that this is tight against the center race of that bearing, and now I'm holding pressure this way on this stop collar while I snug it up. And then I would tighten these so that they were race ready. Now this shaft is locked to that bearing. It cannot move, and because of that this handle is now free to spin and free to lock, and everything's in the right place. So it's fine if you have to omit this stop collar and put your driven on here, but you have to have a stop collar on the outside of the driven, and you can have no play side to side in your driven pulley. It has to be tight because remember, the most important thing is that this shaft cannot move inside that bearing. No play here. How you create that, I'm fine with either way. We run our driven right up to here and put the stop collar on the outside of the driven. No play on the driven.
So Jim, just to kind of clarify, if a guy really wanted to float his driven, this would be the way you'd have to do it. You'd have to run the lock collar right here against the,
yes,
you know, the bearing block, and then he could, you know, maybe float the driven out
right
here.
At that point, we don't care what happens
right
out here because
yeah,
it's restrained here and here.
Correct. So
you may have to work some spacers. You may have to play with some
yeah,
dimensions to get your alignment.
Right. You may have to put the front clutch out a little farther because you're, you know, you're not letting the rear
There's
go.
not a lot of clearance here. Exactly. So. And that's basically the entire installation and the operation. Remember, this is how I do it, but you can do it like this. You have to push this button in all the way, and then you can slide it to the outside, and then you push the button all the way in, and you can slide it in and lock it. When I start James on the starting line, I tell him, Automan engage, because he knows I did it, and he knows that if I didn't say that to him, I may have forgotten to, or someone may have forgotten to. It's very important to do things like that on the starting line for clarity and keep a routine. So if you work this into your routine, it gets easy once you don't have to deal with the belt. It can get easy to forget about this, but you have to do it before you start the car.